Hello, everybody. Here I am getting ready for my 80th birthday. Many of my friends are saying, Troy, what would you like? There's one thing hanging out that I wasn't able to do when I led our church for all those years, and that was an endowment fund. We have an opportunity this year to start that endowment fund so that Metropolitan Community Church can continue in the future of doing the wonderful work that it does now. I asked all my friends, please make a commitment today to send a gift to Metropolitan Community Churches for our endowment fund to make a difference.
As moderator and as a leader in MCC for many years, I've always been amazed at MCC's capacity to raise tens and perhaps even more than $100 million over 50 years in our local churches and in our denomination. We probably own more than $250 million worth of property worldwide. And much of the money we raised was for our local churches, for sharing the message of MCC, for crises, disasters, helping during AIDS. But what we've never quite done well is focus longer term on funding the long-term future of MCC. I think it is past time for us to trust that God wants us to be strong, vital, and to stand up for justice decades and decades and decades from now, to continue to build a globally agile and authentic spiritual community. I still want to give to that vision I heard Reverend Troy preach 48 years ago. As a 22-year-old then, I wondered what God wanted me to do in this world. And I know that there are many 22-year-olds today who are looking, and hopefully looking to MCC for a place they can be authentic and bring God's justice and hope to so many. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Gadet, and on behalf of the entire governing board, we would like to welcome you to today's webinar. You know, it's been a little over a year since you elected us to the governing board, and what a year it has been. Last week, I reflected on my time on the governing board, and it reminded me of the scripture from Philippians chapter 2, verse 2, complete my joy by being the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Despite everything that is happening in the world today, whether it's dealing with the worst pandemic in history or continuing our fight for LGBTQ rights and racial justice, Metropolitan Community Churches all around the world united together on one accord. During this difficult time, we as a denomination united together in love, joy, peace, and harmony. This, of course, could not have happened without the open communication, not only between the governing board, but with the amazing MCC staff all around the world, and of course with you. One of the ways that we're fostering this collaboration is with these webinars. This is an opportunity for the governing board to update you on what we've been working on and to give you the opportunity to ask questions and to get answers to these questions. So let's get started. First, we'll go over the agenda. As you see the agenda before you, we have opening prayer. We're going to move through the gathering thoughts, which will be by our moderator, Cecilia. Work of the governing board for the last quarter. We'll move on to the finance statement and budget. And then from there, we'll go through the commissions on the pathway to healing and commissions for planning of the general conference. Moving on from there, we'll go to COVID-19 feedback, ideas, and questions for the governing board. And throughout this whole process, we'll also review questions that were sent in, answer those questions, and then we'll certainly answer any questions you may have that may come up during this webinar. I will end it with a thank you, and then, of course, we'll move on to a closing prayer. So just a few housekeeping items. The webinar is digitally recorded. Questions only in the question box. Chat box will not be checked for questions. And please be respectful of each other, share your time. And again, please answer any questions that you may have. And again, on behalf of the governing board, we welcome you. Now, please prepare your hearts and mind as we go to God in prayer.
If you want, please join us with me in prayer, please. And the prayer you have it there in English, but I will read that in Spanish. Oh Dios, nuestro Dios, Dios de muchos nombres y quien nos llama a cada uno por su nombre. Oh Dios, nuestro Dios, Dios de lugares y espacios sagrados, quien hace que cada espacio y lugar donde nos encontremos sea sagrado también. Oh Dios, nuestro Dios está en tiempos como los que enfrentamos hoy. Danos valor, fuerza, energía, transformación y sanidad. Proclamamos en este tiempo tu santo nombre, mientras celebramos tu presencia en nosotros y proclamamos tus promesas para nosotros. Y el pueblo de Dios dice, amén y amén.
Thank you, Reverend Alberto. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Who would have thought, as we began 2020, that we would now be sitting in the middle of a global pandemic? And when I travelled to Australia at the beginning of the year, certainly that was in the air, but we didn't realise how huge it would become. It was splendid to be at the Australia-New Zealand network gathering hosted by MCC Melbourne, and Augina and I had a bonza time there. It was great to see more of the family of who we are as MCC. While I was there, I met with politicians and marched in pride, which of course is always a complete delight. From there, we travelled to the USA, and it was a real honour to preach at the Pacific School of Religion, honouring Reverend Elder Frieda Smith. There's a preaching prize held at the Pacific School of Religion in honour of Reverend Elder Frieda, and it was wonderful to be there and also to see an exhibition that is curated there on MCC, and to see our history in the library at the Centre for LGBTQ and Gender Studies in Religion, housed in the library there. So by the time we got back to the UK at the beginning of March, as we know, COVID had started to make its way around the world, and the staff, the governing board, the Council of Elders are all working together to support local churches, to be in touch with you, to provide resources, webinars, opportunities to gather. And my contribution to this has been the weekly time of prayer and reflection on a Thursday on Facebook Live. And it's just been a delight to share that time with so many of you, to learn from you and your faith journey, your wisdom and experience. And I have to say it's one of the highlights of my week every week to spend that time in connection with you. What we also did was the Council of Elders led a series of global memorial services. There were 7 in all over a 24-hour period, and I attended every single one of those, along with Mike. We say thank you to Mike and Marina for supporting this webinar. Mike was up very early and stayed up till late, and it was wonderful to be able to mix some common elements. There was some beautiful music composed by a member of MCC New York, USA, and local languages, local readings local traditions, and it was a really good blend of how we can be truly global and also recognise the beautiful diversity that there is within MCC. The staff team is now almost fully in place. The staff team is excellent and working so well together, and we say thank you to them many different times during this webinar because we're so appreciative of everything that they do. The senior leadership team, which is Reverend Elder Hector Gutierrez, Reverend Dr. Karma Amos, and myself, we meet together on a weekly basis as the senior leadership team, and we established these 3 strategic priorities, and every staff member has an annual work plan, and these are part of their work plan. Improve feelings of connection and belonging throughout MCC. Encourage a culture of sufficiency and generosity. Ensure that diversity and inclusion are embedded and measured in our work. And I hope that you feel more connected and more informed about MCC, about what's happening around the world than you've ever done. And if you have ideas for how we can improve that, we want to hear from you. We believe that God has given us everything that we need to do what we need to do, and that there are riches in store in the experience, wisdom, knowledge of you, of the congregations that you're part of, that you serve. And so we want to share that, and we want to be more inclusive, we want to be more diverse, and we want to make sure that we are able to measure that and see our progress. Very important. I continue to learn about racism and white supremacy and how it impacts us in MCC and in our daily lives, and that's through personal study, and it's also through listening to the experiences of people within MCC, and I'm very grateful for the ways that people have shared those stories with me. You'll hear more about the commissions, particularly the Commission on Pathways of Healing and Reconciliation, later in the webinar. And finally, I celebrated my first year of serving you as moderator. It's been an amazing year, and I'm so grateful for the care and encouragement and support of Reverend Elder Troy Perry and Reverend Elder Nancy Wilson, who are both such great leaders and so much to learn from. So it's been quite the first 6 months of this year. Thank you for everything that you're doing to help us to grow and change the world. Now, pass you on to our next section. Unfortunately, James Chavez has been detained in a work meeting and he's not able to join us at this time, so he sends his apologies. He will be on the call on Thursday. Again, on behalf of the entire governing board, we really want to thank the MCC staff. They work longer hours than they're paid for, they have brilliant ideas, they support each other, they support you. Please take time to thank them when you're in contact with them. If there's something that you need, please get in touch. We are delighted to serve you, and they're a fantastic bunch of experienced, wise, committed people. Reverend Elder Diane Fisher will talk briefly about COVID-19 and the governing board response to that. In the USA, there was an opportunity to get support for funding salaries, the CARES PPP. Many of our churches were also able to apply for that, and the denomination was successful, and that gave us an opportunity to continue to cover our staffing costs. That's a great blessing. And we will talk more about the commissions that General Conference passed to the governing board for us to action. We're going to talk about 2 of those on this webinar. I'll hand over to Reverend Alberto for the next section of this.
Thank you, Cecilia. In the development on the HR manual, 2 members of our governing board are working on that. So the human resource manual continues to be a work in progress. And we now have a committee in place and that are working diligently and and in the work, to update some the manual what is in place. The next thing, I'm sure, what we saw in the beginning, the video from Reverend Nancy and Reverend Troy, and the Still Giving campaign. So, and how the money for the Endowment Fund Foundation will be used. So the governing board voted and unanimously approved the creation of an endowment fund for the denomination. The monies raised will be used for two areas: and to raise his work within MCC and creating an endowment for the future of MCC. Began with fundraising by the first two of moderators. So we thank Reverend Troy and Reverend Nancy for uh, the work they're doing with us and all the back that we have with them and the prayers. Um, the next thing is in place for 1 year, the governing board, we here. We have a year, yeah, we made it. So our moderator and the governing board have been in place for 1 whole year. So yeah, we made it. We can believe, we were like almost last year we were in Orlando, and now we are here. So while some of our work have not been easy, difficult decisions are made to make our organization better. With that said, we are moving in a much better direction. We all could not be more to serve our churches around the world and look forward to continue in service. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayer. Thank you for your encouragement. Really, we are here for you. And I'm sure you are for us too. And the update, if you want to receive update from the governing board, please monthly we send some kind of communication. So if you would like to receive this information, please visit the mccchurch.org and sign up to receive some newsletter. So then that way we can keep the communication between us. And that is for my part.
Hey, good evening, everybody. So Marie Alfred Harkey and I are going to talk a little bit about finances and budget. But first, I wanted to recognize we are so blessed to have a really amazing finance committee at MCC, and Marie and I and the governing board could not do what we do without this amazing group of people. So myself, as the treasurer of the governing board, I chair the finance committee, and I'm in Tampa, Florida, USA. We have Doug Berger with Church of the Trinity, MCC in Sarasota, Florida, USA. Kathy Campbell with King of Peace, MCC, St. Petersburg, Florida, USA. Reverend Marsha Warren, Exodus, MCC, Abilene, Texas, USA. Tammy Irwin, MCC staff. She's our accounting and finance coordinator in Wichita Falls, Texas, USA. And Tammy is amazing. She provides all the reports for us to go through so that we can provide you great information on our finances. Reverend Dr. Karma Amos, MCC staff fundraising development and assessments coordinator, team lead for resource development in Lou, Delaware, USA. Reverend Marie Alfred Harkey, MCC Governing Board, Assistant Treasurer, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And finally, Reverend Elder Cecilia Eggleston, of course, our moderator in Bristol, United Kingdom. And I just wanted to say that this entire team is amazing, but I really want to give a call out to Reverend Marsha Warren, who has just been a right hand to me and has done so much behind the scenes that you all just have no idea. She has gone twice on her personal time to Wichita Falls to work with Tammy on cleaning up our chart of accounts and our accounting system, and it's just been absolutely amazing. So a big thank you to Reverend Marsha Warren for all she does to support us. All right, and I'm going to hand it over to Reverend Marie Alfred Harkey to give us a big picture on our financials.
So, hi everyone. One of the things that I do as a member of the Finance Committee and as the Assistant Treasurer is that I try to, every month before we have our Finance Committee meeting, sort of review the financials. And the way that I do that is to look and see where we are compared to the budget of the whole year. So, right now, we're looking at financials through the end of May. And through the end of May is 42% through the year. So if you look at this slide here, what you can see is that our income is at 53% of our budget for the year, which means that we are over 42%, which is where we should be at the end of May. So that's pretty exciting. And then if you look at our expenses, we are at 37% of where we should be for the whole year, which is under the 42% that we should be at the end of May. So what's really exciting here is that we are over our income budget and under our expenses budget. And that has taken a lot of work by dedicated people, by Chad and Mark and Cecilia and so many folks who have worked really hard to get us to the right size and the right place for our size and our budget. So some examples. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to advance the slides. Thank you. Thank you to whoever just helped me out there. So I gave some examples on income. So our budget for assessments for 2020 is $635,000. And as of May, we are at $316,000 and a little bit, which is at 50%, which is over 42%, which is great because that means our assessments are above what we budgeted, which is really good. And it's also really good when you think about the fact that in May, we were starting to see the effects of the COVID-19 crisis on our churches and on our church's income and tithes. So this is really, really hopeful. If you look at our moderator's circle, we budgeted $90,000 for the year, and we're at $62,000, which is 69% of the budget, which does not mean you should stop giving to the moderator's circle. You should definitely keep giving to keep MCC in this really healthy financial position that we have worked for. But it's really heartening to see that we are above the numbers. Same thing with special offerings. Our budget was $15,000, but we've done these amazing campaigns and we are at $31,000, which is fantastic. Imagine where we could be if we continue to do this kind of work and continue to be above average in our income. And then I just showed one of our basic incomes, which is our rental income, which is, we estimated it to be $6,800 for January to May actual, and it is, because that is exactly what we budgeted, because we know what our rental income is from the Sarasota property. So whoever is helping me with the slides, I have one more. Thank you. So here are some examples from our expenses. So payroll, we are at 37%, which is under 42%. And I don't necessarily want folks to think that it's a good idea always to be under on payroll, because we should pay our staff and we should pay them what they deserve and what they need. The reason that we're under right now is because it took us a while to staff up, to hire the staff positions that Cecilia and the folks on the committee designed. So I would be happy if this number were at 42%, just because I think that our staff deserve that. Our social media and website, we're at 44%, which is basically pretty much where we thought we would be. Office supplies, we're below. Audits, we're above, but that's because we're getting all of these audits that are so far behind done, and that's really exciting. And then when you look at the bottom line, which was the big picture that I showed you, we're still okay, even though we're over in some areas. Software SaaS, these are the systems that we use to keep the denomination going. So it's things like the way we send out emails and the way we make sure we can do webinars and just all of this. And so those things are at 51%, which is totally fine. Dues and subscriptions, which is just things that we literally pay dues and subscriptions to, are below at 21%. Insurance is a little above. And then home office internet, which is what we pay our folks because they use their own internet, their own offices, and all of that, is also below. So when you look at these balances that are both below and above, you can see how we average out to be below in expenses and above in income. And I just want to say we should be so grateful to all of the staff and everyone who are working so hard to stay within our budget. And I hope that you all can see how much we want you to understand where we are financially and to see all of as much transparency as we can possibly offer. If you are a person who loves digging into numbers and seeing all of the financials, you can find those on our website, and you are most welcome to do that. And you're also most welcome to ask us any questions about those finances, because it is our aim, Chad, me, the Finance Committee, all of us, to be incredibly transparent with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Okay, and I just want to give a high level about the budget that we published a few months ago. And again, a big kudos to the Finance Committee. First of all, to Tammy Irwin, who pulled together all the pertinent information and everything that we needed to start looking at our budget for this year. We couldn't do it without all the stuff that Tammy provides us, so thanks so much to Tammy. And then the finance team really spent a lot of time. I mean, I think we did at least 3 two-hour sessions that I remember, really putting a lot of thought and depth into the budget that we presented to the governing board. And we really just wanted to have a realistic budget. We were very conservative. Many of us have been around MCC long enough to know that past budgets have had that dreaming money in it, and we just really felt strongly about not putting that in there this year while we just really looked at where we are and getting things back on track. So we hope that we have come up with, as Reverend Marie showed us, we are doing really good against our budget, so that tells us that we hopefully came up with a pretty good and accurate budget for this year. So kudos to everyone that was involved in this. I'll just give a few high-level highlights on this. For our income, we've got the existing leaders' income. This is just income to support existing leaders and the important work they're doing. Special offerings, this could be things such as the Easter offering or the anniversary offering. Several things can be included in that. Education, that's from courses that we offer. Assessments is obviously our main, largest source of income. We just could not do the work we do without the assessments from the churches. So we're so very thankful to all of the churches that are faithful in their assessments to the denomination. That is how the denomination operates, so thank you so much. Moderator Circle is another income section. We have a very generous group of people that give regularly to the Moderator Circle Fund, which really helps us do the important work that we do and gives us that extra push that the assessments doesn't cover to do some of the vital work we need to do. So thank you. Rental income, this is from our property in Sarasota, Florida that we own, and we have been renting that out for a couple of years now. So we just signed a new lease with the tenant, just I believe within the last month. So And then you've got miscellaneous income and general fundraising income. And general fundraising income can cover a lot of different things. And we were conservative there. You know, we'd love to see that be $100,000, but we tried to be conservative and realistic. So let's see how we do this year against that fundraising income, and we'll use that to gauge for next year. So, all right, and then you go into the expenses. You can see that our payroll costs are our highest expense, and I want to point out that when this governing board came in, our staffing costs were 80+% of our budgeted income. That just was not sustainable, which was why we had to do the whole exercise around looking at our staffing structure last fall. That was difficult. We have amazing staff, but we just needed to get to a sustainable level. So we are now have the staffing costs down to between 60 and 65%, which is much more sustainable. So thank you to our amazing staff that has remained on through all of this and just been so faithful and gracious through all of this. I won't bore you and go through every expense category, but this budget is published out on the UFMCC website. If you click on Governing Board and then Finances, you will see it out there. And I will be happy to, when we go to our questions and answers, take any questions around the budget. Thank you very much. Okay, and so just the staff and governing board just want to really thank everybody for their generous contributions to MCC. You all are what makes it possible for MCC to live out the unique call that we are doing in this world that is so important, and especially right now during so much uncertainty in our world. We have such important work to do, and you know, I heard it a lot at General Conference last year as we celebrated 50 years. We did a lot in those 50 years, but we are far from done with the work that MCC brings so much value in doing, and we are just so honored to be part of that work, and we thank you for being part of the journey with us. And we want to thank all the churches that complete their assessment reports accurately and on time. That helps Marina, who is our amazing staff member that works with you all on the assessments. When the churches complete those on time and accurately, it just makes her job easier. And you know, she's very appreciative, as are we. And making your assessment payments in a timely manner allows us to continue doing God's work and meet the financial obligations that we have. So just a huge thank you to all of you in MCC. All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Claire Coughlin.
Hello, everyone. I am very pleased to be able to share with you about the Commission on Pathways of Healing and Reconciliation. This is not advancing. Sorry about that. And this commission came out of General Conference 2019. As we were tasked with coming up with a commission to help deal with some of the things that have happened in terms of how relationships have been impacted in MCC, especially since General Conference 2016 and beyond. The moderator, the governing board, and the Council of Elders have all been engaged in this process of developing the commission. And the next slide will share who has been appointed, because we now have 9 members of this team as we get ready to get started with our work. The commission is co-chaired by Reverend Elder Cecilia Eggleston, our moderator, and Reverend Dr. Roland Stringfellow, MCC Detroit, USA. Myself, representing the governing board, Reverend Kathleen Alexander, MCC staff, Mr. Richard Norman, Good Hope MCC, South Africa, Ms. Corrales Weston, Vision of Hope MCC, USA, Ms. Ivana Warwick, ICM Sao Paulo, Brazil, M. Reese Jackson Whitaker, Founders MCC USA, and Reverend Jacob Hero Shaw, MCC Tampa, USA. This diverse group of individuals represent a cross-section of MCC, and the commissioners have had their first meeting. We're motivated to begin our work, finding ways to move on this path. We will be working on training coming up soon, which will allow us to have a common understanding of the terms that we'll be using and to have a clear path of how we are going to work together. Some of the key focuses of the commission will be to start the process of organizational and policy change, which will embed racial equality into all areas of the denomination, to develop and recommend strategies to ensure progress toward race equity, diversity, and inclusion, and that it can continue as we move forward, and to design and offer pathways for individuals to move toward healing and reconciliation on elements that have fractured relationships in recent years. This commission will meet and work primarily virtually and through email. Our timeline is for 1 year, and then we will review at that time to see if more time is needed to complete our key tasks. We ask that you please hold the commission, the governing board, the council of elders, and the MCC staff in prayer as we begin this new chapter of transforming ourselves as we transform the world. We know that this is a very tough task to be working on, but we are very excited and motivated that we are moving forward in MCC on this goal. Thank you.
I'm Reverend Paul Whiting. One of the tasks that I do on the governing board is to chair the governance committee, and it's in that role that I'm participating on the commission for the planning of General Conference. So I'd like to actually recognize Mike and Lauren, our staff persons, who actually chair this commission. And in a moment, I'll share the other participants. At last year's General Conference, the Governing Board was asked to set up a commission on General Conferences. And this commission is appointed through March 2022 and will offer recommendations to the Governing Board on the strategy and development of General Conference. It's important to emphasize that the recommendations that we present will be implemented in the 2025 General Conference, not the one upcoming. The one upcoming is when we will present recommendations. The Commission shall seek input from around the world and from all types of people in order to inform the manner in which General Conference ought to be structured in the 2025 year and beyond. So here are some of the questions that we will be addressing during the commission. What are the main goals of General Conference that should be accomplished? Does General Conference give people a sense of unity and direction? How should the business of MCC be conducted? How can we best meet the physical and financial needs of conference attendees given the shift in demographics? How do networks, affinity group meetings, etc. fit into the conference structure? Are there innovative ways we can seek to build new partnerships when planning conferences, network gatherings, affinity group meetings, skill-based learning, etc.? With technology changing rapidly, making meaningful connections more accessible and equitable, can we imagine new ways of conducting conferences or meetings around the world? We've only had 2 meetings, and so we're still gaining from one another's experience. But in the next 18 months ahead of us, these are some of the questions that we will seek to tackle. And on the screen now are the list of people who are currently involved in the Commission. I'll give you a few moments to read that through. Like all of this work, we appreciate your prayers. Many of the people that are participating are volunteers, and so this is a much longer commission than most, and so we appreciate your ongoing support. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane, and I'm doing a little bit of a talk about COVID-19 because it has so dominated the lives of our churches and the communities around the world. It's truly the global pandemic, and it doesn't matter who you are, you can be infected. And so we want to first thank the staff of MCC who responded so quickly with options and support for our churches. And we know that so many of us were, just hit the ground running trying to figure out what we were going to do and how long it would take us and how we could do it in the best way for each and every one of our communities, because they were all different, no matter where you were in the world. We were dealing with it. The information was helpful to everyone. It started in March. We do not know when this is going to end. We know that in some countries around the world, it's already moving on to the next phase, into a phase 3, and in some countries, we're way behind the others. So we're particularly aware that the USA and Brazil are both still in a stage of fairly high infection rates, and so that has an implication on what we're doing. So we've lost a lot of people, and I think that it's been really a difficult thing for our congregations. The hardest part, I think, for many of our congregations around the world has been when family members have died and they haven't been able to be with them, or when they've lost members of their congregations and they haven't been able to do the kind of celebration of life, or even to be with them as they passed. And that has a kind of grief that is collective. And the prayer time that Reverend Elder Cecilia and others organized around the world helped. It gave a place where people could get some of the kind of spiritual support that was needed, and so I thank them for that. So in the midst of all of this, our churches are still there doing amazing things. I am so impressed with your resilience and the way you've managed. We all are impressed by what you've done, and we thank you. We have some best practices, and I think around best practices, what we really tried to emphasize is that the most important thing isn't the building, but is the ministry of the people of the church, and is making sure that the people are kept safe. That's the most important thing around bringing groups together. We want people to be safe, and we've put it in place. And so as we go forward, some nations are moving into a different place than others. And I think that we'll be looking to Europe, certainly, and to help us, and Australia, parts of Australia, and New Zealand, to help us to look at how we can move back into the world and back into doing church in ways that are helpful. So we'll be looking to our communities and our churches in other nations to help. So the USA seems to be partly lagging behind, so I'm sure the churches in the US will appreciate support. And how can we best support our churches? Just let us know. If there's anything you need, we are here, and our staff has done some amazing work at looking at what we can do and how we can move forward. So we've talked a lot about what we're going to do as we move forward. We've looked at what's church going to look like in the future, because we've been aware that during this time, people have experienced things about the virtual church that has made it more accessible for them. And so are we going to be looking at hybrid models, and what might that look like as we move forward? And our job is just to make sure that our churches are given the resources they need through the amazing staff that we have. We are so excited that you've done as well as you've done, and so thankful. So we want to thank all of the churches in all of the nations for the ways you've continued to support us and support the denomination and your communities and your congregations. And we're so grateful for your ministries. Thank you. And we're now moving on to me. So we gathered questions from people. We sent out a note saying we would like to get questions. We received 5 questions, which we will answer today. And various governing board members will answer them. They may generate, the answers that we give you may generate more questions. Please put any questions you've got in the question box, and we will endeavor to answer those as well. And please do questions one at a time, not multiple questions, because we want to make sure everybody has a chance. And I'll now move on to the questions, and I believe our first one is being done by Reverend Paul Whiting.
A number of congregations contacted the governing board and the moderator with regard to virtual meetings and how legal were they. So at the beginning of this year, I had conversation with our attorneys and brought the following advisory to the governing board, which they approved, I think, at our April meeting. So let me read the advisory. In accordance with California Corporation Code 9411, there is no prevention of meetings via electronic means unless they're prohibited by the bylaws, they're authorized by the board of directors, and there are no objections. Members not physically present but participating by electronic transmission or video screen shall be deemed present. UFMCC is incorporated under California law. However, local congregations may also be subject to local state laws. For example, some states prohibit voting by email, given that the sender cannot be physically identified. Also, congregations outside of the US may be subject to regional and national laws. Increasingly, software programs such as Zoom offer the facility for secret ballots. For example, Zoom has provision for single and multiple polling that can be anonymous. So following consultation with our legal partners, it's therefore our considered opinion that this allows for meeting and voting by electronic means. So to summarize that, basically congregational meetings, local board meetings can be done virtually under those provisos. And given that we have no sense of when COVID-19 will end, we encourage congregations to start to look into that.
Paul, can you take that question as well?
Obviously, if your local church bylaws prohibit virtual meetings, then you will need to have a meeting to change the bylaws. And that's where a complication could come, because you would have to have a face-to-face meeting in order to do it. I would be happy to help give advice. And I should also say that previous advisory is available from Rebecca Wilson, our church's resource coordinator on staff. And she and I together will be happy to work with congregations around that.
Cecilia?
Sorry, I was just absorbed in the chat box there. Do contribute. It's good to see everyone joining in. MCC clergy are members of MCC, the denomination, by virtue of the fact that they have a license to practice. So you are a member of MCC in that way. If a clergy person wishes to be a member of a local church, then it's not appropriate to be a member of the church where you have been recently pastoring. We have an agreement that Reverend Kathy Alexander can share with you that lays out what you should do if you are leaving a pulpit, so that there's appropriate distance between you and the congregation, and everyone gets used to that idea. And so you perhaps would look around for a church in your local area, or if there isn't one locally, get in touch with another MCC and see what their requirements for membership are. Many MCCs, especially now, are learning that you can be a very active member even though you might not live in the direct vicinity. So that's the answer to that question, and if you need any further information about that, then please contact our staff. Thank you, Diane.
Can ECM Latin America organize ourselves as one large joined together Spanish-speaking region from Mexico to Argentina instead of sub-regions that are tied together by distance, with direct links to leaders in the sub-regions? And so this was the question that went on to talk a little bit more about what was going on. And we are so thankful for the question. However, these are really not things that the governing board deals with. This is something that is dealt with around programming, and Reverend Elder Hector Gutierrez and his staff team generally would be the people to talk about with this. We certainly do value what you've done, but this isn't ours, and if we get messed up in it, it just will bring confusion. So I'm going to just move on to the next question, which is similar. And it was a question about, can we find out the status of ecclesial communities in the region and the process that is needed for ECM Global to recognize them as full ECM churches, ECM MCC. So it's the same as above. Again, this is a decision that is generally made by the bylaws of our denomination, but also by the staff team that is working with you. And part of the way that we do look at whether a community moves into being in full communion with church is that we look at the reports that you have filed with MCC. And so it's really important for us to get your forms and your reports so that we can pass the information on and so that we know where you are in your development. So I would encourage you to do that. So at this point, Reverend Elder Hector Gutierrez will be the person for you to deal with. Also, Reverend Wanda will help with churches that are emerging in that area. Reverend Wanda will work with you around those emerging churches. And that would be it for the questions that were submitted. And we're going to move on now to the one question that was asked. And Chad, will you respond to that, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Diane, and thank you, Cheryl, for the question. I can tell you that the major majority of our churches are current on their assessments. We have approximately 10 churches that owe more than 1 month right now, which is really low to how it's been historically. All of our churches are giving very faithfully. Churches that are on an assessment agreement are being extremely faithful in maintaining their agreements. And I'm going to give a special shout out again to Marina Laws. Marina does just an incredible job at lovingly working with our churches on behalf of the governing board when they are struggling to come up with an assessment agreement that works for them. So a huge special thanks to Marina there. And lastly, I want to say that you know, those of us on the finance team and the governing board were really so very fearful that during COVID we would see a huge drop in our assessments. And I'd like to say that our churches have been so faithful even through COVID, and it's a blessing. And we continue to monitor it every month, but it's just been awesome. So hopefully I answered your questions. Okay, Cheryl. Diane, back to you.
Thank you for
Mark,
taking the
would you
time
like
to
to
attend.
close us?
I'm sorry. Thank you for taking the time to attend the governing board webinar. We hope that you enjoyed it and found it extremely informative. It has been a fulfilling and rewarding first year on the governing board. We look forward to seeing not only what God has in store for each of you in your local churches, but also for us as a denomination. If you think of additional questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to send us an email at thegoverningboard@mccchurch.net, and we'll answer any additional questions you may have. Our moderator, Reverend Elder Cecilia, will now close us out in prayer.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the governing board. It is a delight to work with you, to be inspired and encouraged by you, and to see the many different things and the many different ways that you support our churches and the ministry of MCC. So thank you to each of you rather. Thank you to everyone who's joined us on this webinar. There is another one on Thursday in Spanish and English. If you would like to join that, you're welcome. Please encourage people to listen in, to get your governing board updates, to go on the website, look at the financial reports, the moderators' reports, the minutes of the meetings. It's all there for you to see. And we look forward to hearing from you. So let us just close in prayer. Loving God, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for the wisdom and experience that is gathered in the governing board. We thank you for the great generosity of the people throughout MCC in supporting their local churches and supporting MCC globally. We appreciate our staff so much, the Council of Elders and network leaders and all who work to serve you. Thank you for the great faithfulness of Reverend Elder Troy Perry and Reverend Elder Nancy Wilson at this time as we celebrate their long lives of ministry and join with them in generosity. Thank you for this time together. We pray for those who are struggling with their health through COVID-19, who are grieving, who are missing Reverend Vicky Gibbs, Connie Meadows, other great servants of yours that we miss at this time. Bless us and guide us as we go on into our day or into our night, knowing that you are always with us. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Thank you to Maria and to Mike for helping us with this. Thank you to Colleen for getting all the information out, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. So take care. God bless everybody.